Hey everybody. So I'm back and I'll shrink my face in just a second, but today's topic is going to be on scholarly sources. What are they? Why are they important? And how to recognize if we have a scholarly resource in our midst or if we're just dealing with something that somebody's opinion threw out there and called a paper. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to, whoops, I'm going to lose myself here. I'm going to shrink myself a little bit more so that you guys can see this. So on the right-hand side or left-hand side, excuse me, you're going to see the format, authors, references, publisher, and examples of different types of publications. So new publications are the authors are usually journalists. The sources may be referred to within the article. So they may or may not be, right? So they're saying they may be, but they may not be as well, which means when you have a scholarly article in front of you, you're going to see a lot of parentheses and in-text citations. So in-text citations are those things that are, it's got the author's name. If there's two authors, there will be two authors and then a date. If there are three or more authors, what you're going to see is the first author's name and then et al., which means there are more than two. There are three or more with the date as well. So those are in-text citations. Those let you know that what they're saying has been paraphrased. The concept has been taken from somewhere else, and they're using their idea. And there should be a reference section referencing them with the full publication reference in the back of the paper. So this is telling you that new publications may or may not have sources cited within the article. The publisher is going to be commercial publisher, so it's going to be somebody who is there to make money. There are investors on the back end. So oftentimes when you look at materials that let's say, for instance, a new nutrition article comes out that says you need to eat bran flakes every day for the rest of your life because it's heart healthy and it'll keep your bowels happy. Yoo-hoo. So the important thing here is you need to know who's funding that article. Who says so, right? So if it's a commercial article and it's being paid for by a sponsor, by somebody else, is that sponsor Kellogg's? Is that sponsor, a chain grocery store? Is it somebody who has your best interest at heart, or is it somebody who has their bottom line front and foremost? So some examples of this is the New York Times. They are not exactly non-biased, right? So they've got their own bent on things. They've got their own skew, bias, opinions, and they're catering to their advertisers. They're catering to the folks who are funding their publication. Popular magazines, again, the authors, journalists, sources may or may not be within the article. So again, they may have those in-text citations. If there are in-text citations, so in text, if there's a paragraph, that's a set of texts, right? So written word. Within that, if there are citations, there should be a separate reference section at the end. Again, popular magazines are funded by their advertisers. If the article was written and you look and it's about new investment real estate and how commercial business is going to boom. And you better run out right now and grab yourself a construction loan from JP Morgan. Is JP Morgan funding the article? Are they providing money to the magazine to write the article in their favor? So some common examples is Time, Fortune, People, any popular magazine that you see out there. These are not going to be great sources of scholarly, research. They've really done no research. These are all basically opinion based, and they're all heavily filled with bias. Trade journals. So these are very specific. So professionals in a specific trade. So I belong to a sort of a teachers group, a national sorority, if you will, of women educators. And every month we get a magazine, and it's written by subject matter experts who are working in the field. Sources referred to in that Sometimes they're referred to within the articles, but oftentimes they're not. So sometimes they'll just put a little footnote. Hey, we got some of this information from here, but a lot of times it's experience based. It's, hey, this was my experience and this is what happened and this is what you should do because I'd like you to avoid this, or this is what you should do because it worked. So, these cater to different groups depending on your area of specialty. So these are supply chain news, that kind of thing. So, um, yeah. So if you're into building model trains, that's going to be this right here. Trade group or professional association organization. It's very, very commercial. Again, funded by the people who are putting out those opinions. So you need to be a little leery of that too. It's really great to have experienced, professionals in the field tell you what's working, what's not working, but be careful of this commercial aspect that means they're getting money, they're getting advertising dollars to possibly, it doesn't all the time, but possibly say things that are not necessarily accurate, but are skewed in a way that sell more publications or benefit, of course, the advertisers and funders. So what you're looking for in a scholarly or peer-reviewed journal, academic scholars and researchers. So these are your authors, right? These are people who hypothetically and hopefully for real are non-biased. They're not using their own opinion to come up with the theories and the concepts and the things like that until the end, right? So a lot of academic papers, a lot of researchers and scholars will write papers, and the front matter is going to be basically what we call a lit review. The front matter is going to be, hey, I did my background research and all of these theorists, all of these people say that this is what's happening. This is the experience of whatever this. Okay, so let's take an example. So I came across a paper not long ago. His name is Fabian and last name is Fabian. 2020. I don't remember his first name or even the name of the article, but he came up with a brand new concept. But he used that concept based on 5 other theorists' different takes on it. So it was basically the development of completing or working through the process of fulfilling one's own potential, right? And he called it, his own concept at the end was this coalescence of being. So he took Maslow and he took Ryan and Decky and he took a bunch of these other concepts and theories and said, this is what the research says. Based on their research, A, B, C, and D fit. But what I'm saying is we didn't examine E. We didn't say, what was happening here. So as a researcher, he looked at all of the information, hopefully in a very non-biased, non-judgmental way, and said, this is what this is saying, but this is, I'm coming up with a new concept, either based on experience, based on a gap in research, based on a population that had not been previously studied. So there's always going to be a research problem. There's always going to be some question that they want answered that hasn't previously been answered in that way. These articles will always have in-text citation. There will be a ton. If you've got a really good scholarly peer-reviewed article within a peer-reviewed journal, right? So the article itself, there's generally a bunch of articles listed within periodic journals. So journals come out either monthly, quarterly, biannually, or annually. And within these journals, there's just a ton of peer-reviewed articles. So the articles will always have a list of references at the end, always. It's always going to be, you're going to look for one that's pretty extensive, right? For the sake of, if you're just beginning, if you look for maybe 10 or more references, that might be a good enough start. But most articles that are good scholarly peer-reviewed articles are going to have probably 20 to 50 references in the back that they have used. So university or scholarly presses, so that is the publisher. So we don't have and again, professional societies and research institutes. So we don't have this commercial piece necessarily, although I wouldn't say that's not always the statement, right? Because oftentimes universities and journals are funded by certain bigger organizations or bigger agencies or even independent funders. And hopefully that is not creating bias within the publication realm, but sometimes, it does because humans. But theoretically speaking, universities and scholarly presses should not be publishing based on where they're getting their dollars from. They should be publishing based on how credible, how reliable, and how consistent, right? And how valid the research that was done is, how it's presented, who presented it, how the research was conducted. And then the examples of this, a journal of supply chain management. So in the world of psychology, what we often see, so ProQuest is kind of the bottom of the rung when you're looking for scholarly and peer-reviewed journals. They have a ton of resources. And then there's, I say bottom of the run, not they're wonderful publication, but they accept probably twice as many peer-reviewed and scholarly reviewed journals or articles as the others. So you're going to find, American Psychological Association is another big publication, and obviously in psychology. So there's a lot of different ones out there, and they're not so, what was I thinking? I think there's a plus one or something like that, but yeah, so there's a bunch of them out there. So just know that when you're looking for scholarly and peer-reviewed journals, you're going to look for, is the person who wrote it an actual expert in their field? Are they a researcher? Are they trying to answer a question? Did they put citations within the article? Is there an extensive list of resources, references in the back, at the back end of the article? Was it published by a university or a scholarly press like the APA, American Psychological Association? They're more kind of a research institute too. And you're also going to look for specific elements to the paper, right? You're going to look for an abstract. You're going to look for methodology. You're going to look for synthesis, a discussion on, where the study went, what happened. So it's going to be broken down into pieces, very, very detailed pieces about the process of actually doing the research and then what came out of that. You're often going to see graphs. You're going to see a lot of visual things to put all the pieces together, because they're not going to just give you a graph and not explain it. They're going to explain what happened there. And then at the end, they're always going to have a discussion. And then it'll go into future research. Okay, well, based on our research, we found out that the coalescence of being meant this. But in future resource, we need to examine the elements that came up during the research, which will fill in the next gaps of, FG and et cetera. So so on. So those are the things you really want to look for. So when it comes to scholarly research, make sure that you're lost my microphone, that you're hitting those elements, and you will be just fine. So that is the end of our discussion on scholarly research. I think I had one more thing up here. No, we're just going to go through an exercise when we get to class. So that is your discussion on scholarly research, and we will work that out together in the classroom if you are one of my students, and I hope to see you all soon. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.